2 Samuel chapter 1. Saul has persecuted David, been absolutely awful to him, and now Saul is dead. And David laments for him, and this is no theatricism. From his absolute heart, he's absolutely heartbroken that his enemy has died. Although David was cranky in some ways, he absolutely sets us an example of love for your enemy. And here he really does pour out his heart in grief for Saul's death. And yet in the Psalms, when Saul's persecuting him, he's asking God to curse Saul and do this and do that to Saul. And yet when he dies, he's heartbroken. So be careful what you pray for, because you will get it. And it may not necessarily be at the time what you actually want. Well, here, this whole thing is picked up by David in Psalm 35. And he says that when Saul died, he said, I mourned for him as a man mourns for his mother. Why is that picked on? A man's grief for his mother, not a mother for her child, not a father for his son, a son for his father, but a son weeping at the funeral of his mother. Why do we as men weep for our mothers when they die? Because I think there is something in the male thing that you realise I did not appreciate her as I should have done. And now it's too late, she's dead. I think that's what David has got his finger on. And so he says that that's how he felt here at the death of Saul. Maybe this is one window onto how to cope with our enemies, how to love your enemies, to actually see that there was something good in them, and to appreciate the good that was in them. And there is good in every man, no matter how evil. And he sets us for all time this pattern of genuine grief over the death of your enemy, and not rejoicing that my enemy fell. Leave all judgment to God, but we from our side here on earth are not to judge and condemn people, even if they're our enemies in our own mind, but to love them with the love that David showed for his enemies, remembering that we also were enemies of God, actively enemies, but we were reconciled to him by the death of his son. That ought to, for all time, influence us in the way we feel about those people who, without doubt, we all have in our lives, who are enemies, who are against us.